All right, friends, we are back in action. Betting You rolls on second edition of the week. We already talked about a lot of the big-time teams, but that doesn't mean there aren't more bets to get on the board. We're going to discuss that. We're going to look again at the playoff just a little bit because we did get some information from the committee between the two episodes. But welcome to Betting You. I'm Ben Reza. That is Matt Kajeski. You guys know the drill. All things college football here on the Odd Chopper channel. If you enjoy this, if you've been with us the whole year, or you're stopping in, better late than never, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Sir, we talked about the big games. I don't know if you took a peek at what the committee did. Everyone seems upset no matter what they do. Not much has changed in my thoughts about the playoff.
I did not see what they do. I pay them no attention until they make the real decision at the end.
Yeah, and that's probably the prudent move. It's basically a like a reality TV show. They want people to talk about stuff and get upset and get wild. And I think that that's pretty normal. The big things, I think people were upset that they had Tennessee at 11 behind some teams. They had Penn State ahead of Indiana. But all these things will work themselves out on the field, particularly the Indiana situation. They get their shot against Ohio State. And if they lose, we'll see. If they win, obviously, they're beyond in. I don't have much to say on it. It sounds like you don't either. I just can't wait to see it. I'm very, very excited, obviously.
Yeah, you mentioned their motivations. They're not to put out something accurate. It's to get you talking about them. So you watch them, which anytime that's the motivation, I pay it almost zero attention. And I think you should just look at betting markets instead of watching that show and save your time and watch things that are more impactful because you're going to learn absolutely nothing on that show. In Tennessee's defense, they do play UTEP and Vanderbilt the rest of the way. Vanderbilt's better than you might think. But I mean, there are other teams that play each other, and Tennessee's probably going to come out of that with 2 wins. So they'll be sitting at least in a position of strength. They still need help to get into the playoff at all. But I mean, it's not the craziest thing. They're on my list of playoff contenders, and I only have a couple teams on the list. Who was the other one people were pissed about?
I mean, again, this is negligible.
Penn State?
Penn State was 4th, and Indiana, undefeated, obviously, was.
I mean, 5th. Penn State would be favored over Indiana today. So it is what it is.
It is what it is. And again, it doesn't.
Like the odds are more. I think the odds are more important than that. Like SMU and Miami are still favorites to get in. They're both, depending on where you look. SMU is like minus 130. Miami's minus 200. That's way more interesting to me than what the TV ratings say. A&M did move. They're not plus 400. They were plus 600 2 days ago when we talked. I think that's a little more appropriate than what it was earlier. And Notre Dame minus 500. I still think you could take Boise State at minus 350. They're like a stone lock to get in my opinion.
I don't really understand that one either because
it's minus 350. It's not great odds. But
of course. Yeah. But still, they're like I said, those discussion points we'll talk about. We're going to be in Discord, I'm sure.
Would you rather have Boise minus 350 or one of the ACC teams, let's say Miami minus 200-ish, SMU minus 120?
Oh, no, I'd rather have Boise. I mean, I know the lines aren't reflective. The thing about the ACC that I don't really get is that to me, you're basically betting that game. That game is going to probably happen. And when it does, I think it's an elimination game.
All right. What about... Never mind.
Like, do you not see that? Like, to me, Miami and barring...
I was going to ask you something completely different. I agree with you. I think you should just bet the Miami-SMU game if you think one of those teams is going to get in.
Clemson's going to be boxed out. I feel pretty confident saying that, and I don't think Clemson can get in unless they win that conference.
They're plus 250, which is a ridiculous line. They should be like plus 800.
I don't understand. How is Clemson getting in?
They can't even make their own title game without another team losing.
Yeah, and I don't see that happening. So yeah, I'm a little confused about that. Clemson, I don't think has a path.
They also play South Carolina.
Yeah, that's no pushover.
They should lose to. That's always the best betting spot of the entire year. The Kentucky-Louisville game. Anytime you get these late season non-cons against an SEC team that's disappointed, but they're playing like an ACC team, generally those lines are a little too narrow. You can take some advantages with the SEC team over the weaker conferences. Can't wait for that this year. I will likely be betting South Carolina.
Yeah, we've seen that even at the height of Clemson's power. When they were a dynasty, that was always a weird, greasy game, and South Carolina used to be awful. But you know what? We're going to see it all play out. I can't wait. Let's get into to some of the actual spots, the actual games. And again, these are going to be what you think, probably middling ACC, middling Big 12 type teams. That's what we start with Pittsburgh and Louisville. Both these teams had their moments. The spread is bouncing around a little bit. Obviously, odds are updating in real time. What do you make of this game? What do you make of the spot?
I think it's going to depend some on injuries. You see the line movement because of some Eli Holstein stuff. He still hasn't been cleared to play. I actually don't know what the injury is with him. I'm not sure. It might be a head injury, but that's really the biggest thing with this team. Nate Yarnold played better than I thought he would against Clemson last week. Still only completing 63% of his passes, 6.5 yards per attempt, 4 turnover-worthy plays, only 2 Big Ten throws, and he can't run at all. But he still had more production. I thought this guy was going to be like entirely inept, like when we saw him last year. The things Holstein gives you that Yarnold doesn't, just better efficiency, not by a ton actually through the air, but Yarnold has a small sample. There's still a chance he goes back to what he was last year. And the real difference is Holstein runs 4.1 yards per carry. Yarnold is like live to get you negative rushing yards behind this offensive line, which has been a problem. And Louisville has had a lot of injury concerns themselves, but I think they have just like a significantly better team. I think the best way to play this, I'll get into some player personnel later, is just like maybe wait to see if Holstein plays. If he does, you could probably buy Louisville at like a -7, a -7.5 maybe. We've already kind of seen what he's worth to the line. I don't want to buy Louisville right now at like the peak because it's already pricing Holstein out. And if you want to take Louisville, you can make that decision on Saturday morning or something. It's probably not going to move through like 10 or anything. But Louisville has a better infrastructure, in my opinion, better offensive line kind of by far. Pitt is outside the top 100 in both pass blocking and run blocking. Louisville's at least above average. Pitt lost Brandon Taylor on the offensive line for the year. He's just out. And Louisville's gotten healthier on that. In that area, they got back Monroe Mills, which was I didn't even think he was going to return this season, which is awesome for them. They're about as healthy as they've been all season on offense. Obviously, Colin Lacey decided to redshirt. Isaac Brown apparently is going to play in this game, which is shocking to me. Either he's a huge coward crying on the sidelines, or, I mean, he made a miraculous recovery. I'm not sure what the answer is. But then they're also much healthier on defense. A lot of the defensive backs they missed at the midpoint of the season are back now for this team. Pitt's defense has regressed a little bit in recent weeks since they've started taking on better opponents. I have Louisville just straight up as the better defense over this team. And I guess the real problem I have is Louisville's most recent game. Like, what the hell happened against Stanford? Talk about like a weird letdown. They beat Clemson and then they lose to Stanford. And again, there wasn't really a lot of injury noise or anything in the game. They just lost. That happens in the ACC sometimes. I flat out have no explanation for it other than perhaps like a look ahead, or I don't know. They just were lackadaisical coming off the win. It's really hard to explain, but Louisville I have as the better team. I think the best way to play this is wait till you get Holstein news or play on Saturday morning if Holstein's out.
Yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh clearly, they were a little overinflated. We saw that in recent weeks. There's a 7.5 out there right now. So it is moving around. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, I'm with you. We just need clarification. How much, this is more not related to this game, but just in general, are we going to start to see, I mean, maybe we've already seen, are guys going to just randomly start like shutting it down if you're going to portal or something? Is that like a real concern at this point?
I think it could be in some situations. I'm not really sure why you would do that though.
No,
you're still like,
he has a long time.
Like, who are you thinking of? Is there anyone, like an example you have in mind?
Not really. More so just like at the end of the year with just the fluidity of these teams. We used to see, obviously there was a trend there and, it's still happening where it's like, okay, my team is going to the, sausage bowl. Like, I'm not playing in this game because I'm going to be a top draft pick. Like we obviously had seen that, but now more and more, it's just like everyone's on the move. I just wonder with some of these teams, how much late season injury personnel stuff will be affected, or maybe none. Maybe it's business as usual. It's just a genuine question.
Yeah, most of that has occurred in bowl games. You very rarely see anything in the regular season. Some guys have already hit the portal, but I mean, the real thing we've noticed this year is like some guys will redshirt. if you can,
Yeah.
even if you're playing as like a rotational guy, but you already burned your red shirt, like what incentive do you really have? Especially because like, if that's the situation, you're probably not making that much money. Like, why wouldn't you just play, like try to get some extra experience? Like you going to the portal, you're clearly not like that good where you're maximizing revenue anyway. So,
No, that makes sense.
I mean, this is my rationale. Who knows what's going to happen? Like I'm sure it'll be more than last year. I'm sure you will see a few guys trickle into the portal, but I don't think it's going to be like this tidal wave.
And that's what I was referring to, like a mass exodus. So we'll keep an eye on it. Obviously, we'll see what's up. Same teams, different conference, in my opinion. Wisconsin and Nebraska, same nonsense. I thought that Wisconsin had their chances last week. Obviously, it's a completely different situation when you're at home. Now you got to go to Nebraska. Nebraska, I thought, had a pretty shitty year. A lot of these teams have turned it around, and they just haven't. I don't think it's alarm bell season, but clearly they're not on the Colorado path. I'll tell you that much. What do you make of this spot? You got a 2.5-point spread.
Was actually a little impressed with Wisconsin's defense. That has not always been a strong unit for them this year. They're 116th in rushing efficiency, which is a huge problem. And Oregon, I think, more or less kind of hurt themselves. Like they had the red zone interception. That game could have been worse. I want to give Wisconsin some credit, but I'm not sure I'm ready to just buy in on this defense after what they allowed to Dylan Gabriel. And Jordan James was still at almost 5 yards per carry coming off an injury. Caleb Johnson the week before, 5.6 yards per carry, even though that game wasn't particularly close. Penn State's backs were just fine. I mean, this rushing attack for Nebraska has also been inept, so I don't know who's going to win. It's sort of like weakness on weakness. The Nebraska O-line has actually gotten a little bit better, which maybe is just like an experience thing. They've been down 3 starters. They made the move to Mazkua at offensive line at tackle. He was supposed to be one of their premier transfers. Then he kind of quit the team for a little bit when he wasn't playing. Now he's back out of necessity. So they might be able to exploit this. I don't know. The OC change midseason was weird. You go to Holgerson, who is like, been working as like an analyst. It didn't look great. Early returns for them in the first game with Holgerson were not good. So I'm not really sure I'm willing to buy into them against Wisconsin, who is, I think, a better defense than USC. Raiola still has been very much up and down, taking a ton of sacks, 8 turnover-worthy plays, 10 interceptions. So he's run bad, but he's still not contributing anything through the pass game himself either. You don't have a lot of big-time plays. Completion percentage is average. Yards per attempt is below average. He doesn't have a ton of time to throw the ball with a shaky offensive line, who's played a little better. But the receivers aren't separating. It's kind of just a disaster offensively for Nebraska this year. And Wisconsin, I do think, could score against a better Nebraska defense just because they can run the ball so well. They're 10th in pass blocking, 47th in run blocking. Great running game, even without, losing Ches Malusi earlier this year. Tawi Walker's been just fine. But Wisconsin can't throw the ball. So Nebraska should be able to load the box on this Wisconsin offense. I don't know. This is a very greasy game. I tend to lean Wisconsin. I don't like taking them on the road. I wish there was a 3 out there. I think they are the better team, but this is going to be volatile because both these teams have very defined weaknesses that the other team could exploit if they're coached well enough. But I don't know if either team is well coached. I mean, both these teams have fired their OCs within the last 2 weeks.
It's pretty bad. I'm going to say that I'm interested in the under. Do you have any interest in the under?
Yes, I do. 42.5 is alarmingly low, but pace is terrible. Both offenses are very bad. I think Nebraska has a good defense, and they're healthier now. Like, they got back Tommy Hill. I mean, they don't really have anyone I have flagged for injury right now, nor does Wisconsin. They're both kind of at the peak of their health. Wisconsin held Oregon to 16. That's awesome. Again, Oregon did that to themselves because the week prior, or 2 weeks prior, they had a bye. Wisconsin allowed 42 to Iowa. Nebraska's defense is awesome. They've really held every opponent below 30 points in regulation outside of Indiana, which is pretty wild.
I like this under. I think it's going to be a slow, methodical, ugly game. Just
what do you think Wisconsin's pace looks like without Longo?
Can't be.
They were above average in pace.
But it wasn't like comically fast.
They were 60th. Nothing
Yeah,
crazy.
that's what I mean. That's fine.
I think there's a chance they could slow.
I'd say there's a better chance they slow than somehow increase.
I agree.
So to me, it's like you get what you get, or you get a slight uptick. Even at that pace, I was more than content.
I'm not sure who's going to call plays. He called it. He had a press conference. He said it was going to be a collaborative effort, which
that sounds promising. But yeah,
I don't know if that's good or bad. Anyway,
42.5. Put me on the board for it. Sign me up. Vanderbilt, awesome season. LSU, not great. 7.5, 8-ish. Before we get to the spread, your boy, you think Brian Kelly's on the hot seat at all?
I don't think so. I think it's too early for what they paid him, and he has had some decent returns. But man, I mean, this is not what they asked for when they brought him in. Honestly, it's probably worse. And now you have to ask the question, like, okay, you got Blake Baker in. He was supposed to be the answer to a defense that struggled last year. What happened? This year, they're maybe slightly better. And you lost like a bunch of NFL players on offense. They've taken a step back there. Like, what's your replacement plan? The strength was supposed to be your offensive line. You can't really run the ball. So I don't know with LSU. Do you think he's on the hot seat?
No, but I think he's on the path to being on the hot seat pretty clearly.
That's well said.
I guess the crazy thing for me, I mean, it's not about this, but I honestly, and I can't believe I'm saying this, if you told me who's more likely to be fired first, him or Napier, I think I'd say Kelly.
I don't hate that. I don't know if I agree, but I will say I don't feel strongly on it.
It's crazy that it's in consideration. I guess that's my point. Like, think about where they started this year.
Napier started from a way worse position.
Incredibly worse. And
that goes back to when Napier took the job. This Florida team was a mess when he got the job. Recruiting, NIL was a disaster. Now he is Florida recruiting unbelievably. LSU still recruits well, so that's not really a huge problem for them. No. But like LSU couldn't get anyone to play like defensive line for them this year. They had a huge weakness coming into the season. They didn't really do a ton in the defensive backfield that sucked. They kind of just planned on, all right, we'll take Blake Baker and then it'll be good. Well, it's not. So now what?
Like I said, the heat is rising. I'll tell you this. If they lose this game, the heat's really going to rise. I don't think they will, but Vanderbilt's been scrappy all year. You can catch north of a touchdown with them. It always comes down to, it feels like Pavia defies all metrics in some ways. How do you see the game breaking down?
I have this closer than 7.5, 8 points. If you could find an 8, I'm very interested in that.
There's an 8.5 out there.
That's wild. This is all over the place.
Yeah.
An 8.5, I think I might take. I might take that right now if I can search and find one on the back end in good old Wisconsin. But defensively, these two teams are pretty much identical. They have different weaknesses, but 80th, that's Vanderbilt. 86th, that's LSU. LSU's biggest weakness, I mean, they really are just rushing the passer, and that's kind of it. They're 106th in run defense. They're 99th in coverage. They've gotten blasted in both areas recently. Lagway, 8.7 yards per attempt. They allowed 10.8 yards per carry to Jaden Baugh. And every single Florida back was at least 6.2 yards per carry. They're facing a worse rushing attack by far against Vanderbilt, but Pavia is dynamic in this. Cedric Alexander is a former 4-star. There are other players on this list that are more comparable to Vanderbilt. I won't run through everyone. They've essentially allowed some rushing production to every team they face this year, going all the way back to like the scrub teams too. Let's talk like Kentrell Bullock for South Alabama, 6.2 yards per carry. Like, what in the world are we doing here? They can't defend the run. That's what Vanderbilt wants to do. And Vanderbilt, despite their weaknesses, their offensive line is atrocious. They're 128th in pass blocking, 111th in run blocking. But they're so well schemed at this level of play with, like a gimmicky offense, which is kind of perfect for them. They're at a talent deficit every single week. You can't just run out there and play like a pro-style offense. Even against LSU, like Vanderbilt's going to get murdered in games if they do that. So they do a bunch of weird stuff on offense, creative stuff. It's hard to prepare for them. They've had a ton of success doing it. LSU's defense is problematic, so Vanderbilt, I think, can score on this team. But the problem is I think LSU can probably score as well. They've had an offensive line advantage in a lot of games this year. somehow they haven't been able to take advantage of it. I will say Vanderbilt's strength is run defense, so you're going to probably rely on the roller coaster that is Nussmeier throwing the ball over the top. And I mean, I've been starting to get into some early NFL draft stuff, just like listening content-wise. A lot of people seem to think Nussmeier is the number one quarterback in this class. It's a weak quarterback class. So, I mean, there are big plays. You can see them on film, but there are also a lot of turnover-worthy plays. He has 16 of them this year. Cost him the most recent game, a terrible red zone interception, which just isn't really defensible because the O-line is good, especially pass blocking. So I kind of like Vanderbilt in this game. I hate that they have to travel to Death Valley. That's not something you ever really want to do. But they're off a bye. That's something to worth note as well in this spot. Yeah, I mean, what do you think? I'm interested in Vanderbilt.
Is Vanderbilt or pass for me? You can find 7.5s all over the place. You can search for better numbers than that as well. I'm a little disturbed at I don't have, I mean, I'm no draft expert, but I think there's like 5 quarterbacks that I would have ahead of him.
I just started like firing up, like podcasts and stuff. Like Senior Bowl guy, Matt Nagy, has Garrett Nussmeier as his number 1 QB. So I was a little bit.
I mean, I know Beck hasn't had a good year, but like Sanders, Cam Ward.
Shedeur would probably be like the consensus.
Yeah.
Also, one last thing I forgot to mention. LSU has 2 offensive linemen that are hurt right now. Miles Frazier, I think he might play. Garrett Dellinger is a little more questionable. Those are both of their guards, starting guards.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is the type of stuff that's why we need to know this stuff. LSU. No. Okay. Look where I've gone. Here we go. Yeah, there's 7.5s all over the place. All right, let's keep it moving. Then we're going to talk about, by the way, all this information. A lot of these games we keep saying, keep an eye on injuries, stuff like that. I'll show you how to get into Discord, get into the Tails app for free. Stay tuned in just a couple minutes. USC, what do we got going on with these fools? 4.5-point favorites against UCLA, a little rivalry, 51.5, give or take. Floor is yours, man. USC, it's been a really interesting and tough evaluation all year. UCLA kind of the same. Do you have a lean in the rivalry game?
I don't think so anymore. I really wanted to take USC until they went to Maeva under Signal Caller. He's so volatile. And we saw this last year. He had 24 turnover-worthy plays with UNLV. He didn't even start the entire year. And that was in the Mountain West. So it was like, what is he going to do now playing in the Big Ten, even if he has to play weaker Big Ten teams? Nebraska does have a good defense, but they're still not among like the top Big Ten contenders. And Maeva came out there. He finished with a solid game, but he did have 3 turnover-worthy plays. Only one of them was converted to an interception. And I watched a lot of that game. There were some horrendous throws that should have been intercepted from Maeva. So I'm just very, very hesitant to back anything USC right now. They still have their normal problems. Their offensive line has been a huge issue this year. Their best mark is 97th in pass blocking. Their defense is, especially up front, like they can't get any push. They're 97th in run defense. That has not gotten better. They've started experimenting with some of their players in the back, and they don't rush the passer at all. They're 100th. But it's like everything UCLA does is maybe worse at almost every position than what USC does. And they have a ton of injuries on defense. They have really on offense now. They have for a lot of the year. Jalen Jeffers, at tackles, out for the year now. Nicky Prongos missed their last game. He was on crutches. Ruben Unije has been out for a long time. He hasn't played in months. Rico Flores hasn't been playing. I mean, this team is a complete mess, but somehow they've actually looked better despite some of these issues. They only lost to Washington by 12, and they beat Iowa and Nebraska in back-to-back weeks, and they beat Rutgers before their bye. So I'm not sure what to make of this team. I think there was a yards per play, actually, like Nebraska probably could have won that game against USC, and they failed. But this is pretty greasy. I think, if anything, you maybe just want to take like whoever's getting points if you were really, really interested in this game. And I don't know, maybe like the best way to play it could be like sprinkling UCLA's money line. It's something like crazy, but Maeva is either going to like USC could win this game by 10 plus or lose by 10 plus with Maeva's play.
It's kind of where I was heading. Again, you got to know what you're getting into, but plus 150-ish range, give or take, on a game that I think has a ton of volatility as well. Not the worst. It's not my favorite game. I want to be clear, but if you're saying I want to make a play here, I'd probably just splash UCLA money line. They have the talent to do it. They've looked good in spurts.
What do you think about the total?
51.5, I see.
Both these defenses are awful.
Yeah, it's not like a great pace, is it?
It's not bad.
Okay.
USC is 70th. UCLA is 53rd.
That's better than I thought with UCLA. I thought they were playing really slow, but I guess not.
They were. They're playing extremely fast now. In their most recent game, they were at 23.9 seconds per play. If you had that mark for the whole season, they would rank 20th. But UCLA has slowed, or USC has slowed. So it's kind of both offenses are working in the inverse.
Okay. But still, I like teams that are having like a pace adjusted, a pace up spot more and more. I like that. So I'm not sure that people realize that. Okay, you may have talked me in. It's slating to get juiced, and I want 51.5. You get.
I might take that.
Okay, that's actually I'm gonna make a little note here. Okay, very good.
And the other thing with Maeva is, for all like the great plays, which will help them score, and they've been explosive all year, especially through the air. The turnovers don't like necessarily hurt you. A lot of times it leads to short fields, early scores. I mean, Maeva has a lot of like Jameis Winston to his game.
Yeah, and we know how that goes. We know how that goes. All right, let's see this game for reasons. Rutgers and Illinois, a pseudo pick 'em. Couple points if you want to take Rutgers. I've had honestly no feel on Rutgers all year. They've been low key a team that's actually hurt me quite a bit. I don't know. I just can't get them right. I had them against UCLA. It was terrible. I was fortunate against Washington with them. What remains? What's the status of these guys? Obviously, injuries played a big role in this season for them. And then Illinois, who I actually think was overvalued for quite some time.
I was going to say, I feel like you've kind of just walked into, like the Big Ten doesn't release their injury report till 90 minutes before kickoff. And you would like come into the week, have like 3 points of closing line value, and boom, it would be like Rutgers has all these, a lot of injuries. So I don't know. I don't think your process was bad with Rutgers. I've been on them quite a bit as well this season. I'm interested in them in this spot, especially now that the line is moved and you can find them at a dog price. But it's the same situation we've been kind of dealing with Rutgers. The injuries all season long have been a problem for this team. They've now lost 2 offensive linemen out for the year, Bryce Felter at guard and Tyler Needham. The Tyler Needham one is new. They have some players on defense that are still banged up. It seems like every time they return someone else comes out. Wesley Bailey, the edge that was initially out to begin the year, he's been out again. In Illinois, the only player that's really injured for them is Dylan Roziak at linebacker. He broke his leg. The other thing I noticed is they finally benched their right guard, Zy Chrysler. He's still playing a little bit, but Henderson split time with him. And that's something to note because Rutgers has by far the better offensive line. It's kind of just like, all right, Illinois already sucked. They're benching one of their guards. But Rutgers has these injuries on the offensive line. So can they withstand this? Are they going to be competent now that they have to play some backups? I don't know the answer to that firmly. But outside of that, Rutgers, I still think has a better defense than Illinois. Illinois is 111th in run defense. Now you have to face Monangai, who's banged up himself, but he keeps playing in games. The strength of Illinois is on their back end, which doesn't really matter all that much against Rutgers, who prefers to just run the ball down your throat. And then the Rutgers defense it's 53rd. They're not elite anywhere, but they're also not bad anywhere. They don't really have any strengths or weaknesses. So I'm interested in them at the dog price, but as usual, at least the last couple of weeks with Rutgers, I think it's better to just check in on them Saturday morning and see who's out, because that's been a huge mess for them. And I've gotten bit by that injury report for them multiple times this year.
Again, I hear that. That's one. I'm with you. We're going to have to check back. And it's the perfect time for me to mention, like I said, I've seen this quite a bit already during this show. If you haven't been over to Tails, and what Tails is our marketplace where you can get inside the ropes, not just with us, but with all these different creators. We're adding people every single day. You get their communities, you get their picks, you get their insight. It's fantastic. We would love for you guys to be part of ours or anyone else. But if you're going to do it, why not just get it for free for a month? And that is what we're offering right now with our partners. You go to this page. The link is in the description. It's going to say Get Tails Free. When you click on it, you're taken here. Bet365, Caesars, BetMGM, Sleeper, Underdog, Reba, all the different books. I'm sure you play on some of these. I can also guarantee there's probably one or two in your state that you don't play on that might be interesting, that you might want to get the bonus bets associated with it, plus the month. You claim this offer, you just press this, you follow these instructions, you get a free month of any Tails package that you want, and it stacks. So if you do 3 of them, you have 3 months to play with. Simple as that. Again, why not get the month and the bonus bets and access to the new book all in one? Super simple. I know a ton of you watching have already done this, but if you haven't heard about this, it's right there. It's available. And for teams like Rutgers, worth its weight in gold. Now, we got to stick in the Big Ten and talk about our friends Iowa and Maryland. I don't even know what to say with Maryland anymore. They've been a weird team all year. But talk to me. Iowa, too. Iowa's had offensive explosions at times. You got a 6-point spread here, 46-point total, but they have to hit the road. Upset or lay the points?
I'm laying the points. I hate
Okay.
this Maryland team with a passion. This is one of it was one of my big faves earlier in the season, and it's come to fruition. I've been betting against them a lot situationally. I took a -6. I think it's completely fine. The biggest concern with Iowa is who's playing quarterback for them. Brennan Sullivan's out. Allegedly, Cade McNamara might be healthy enough to return. Otherwise, it'll be Jackson Stratton, who threw 6 passes in their last game, ran the ball 1 time. I don't think we can really say anything on him one way or another. But who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
Iowa's had a terrible quarterback the entire year. Do we really care who goes? Honestly, put in a 6th offensive lineman and let Caleb Johnson run the ball every single play. That's probably the optimal way Iowa should play this game. But they are coming off a bye. So hopefully this team is healthier. The only player I think is for sure out of consequence is Reese Vanderzeen. He plays receiver. Luke Lachey, he's been battling an injury, but he keeps suiting up. Last game, he only managed to play 12 snaps, but now you've put 14 days between you and your last game. Hopefully he can play more than 8 snaps out there. Maryland is unbelievably bad. They played almost 10 offensive linemen in their last game. That has been a huge problem for them all year. We knew this coming into the year that this offensive line was going to be awful. And this, I'm not kidding, grades out is the stone worst offensive line in the Power 4 conferences, worse than Purdue, which I didn't think was possible, but this is a fatal flaw unit. And I feel bad for Billy Edwards, man. They've benched him at times, incorrectly addressing this problem. And maybe it's just because the dude is probably developing some atrocious habits, but somehow he has 22 big-time throws and 11 turnover-worthy plays. He's had an awesome season considering he's working with just an utterly atrocious unit. He does have Ty Felton and Caden Prather, but still, 22 big-time throws. He's the one delivering those. It's really just negligent that Maryland came into the season with this offensive line and did nothing to help them out. On defense, they're also awful. They rank 96th, and Iowa is 9th. This is one of my favorite ones on the board.
Interesting. The police are here. Everyone is very excited. Sound the alarms. Let's go, Iowa. Listen, you tell me you want to short Maryland. You mentioned fatal flaw. I'm on board. All right.
I also did bet Iowa in their last game, though.
Yeah, I mean,
and they lost to UCLA.
Yeah, but that UCLA, I'm telling you, we both have a little interest in them. UCLA is doing some things. I'm going to excuse that just a little bit. All right. We got a little playoff action on the secondary show. Who would have thunk it? SMU. Can't be messing around. This is the type of game that SMU would mess around. I'm a little worried here as a big SMU backer. Are you worried at all?
I don't think so. I would like to bet SMU. I wanted to hear what you thought, and you kind of hinted at your opinion that you're a little nervous for this game. I'm not sure. Go ahead.
No, I'm nervous, but I'm not sure this is a positive sign. I don't know if Virginia is the right team to do it, but I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, to be honest. Virginia is just a weird team.
Virginia has problems. A lot of them are injury related. They've been honestly kind of similar to Rutgers, where they've had guys in and out of the lineup repeatedly this year. And I have a lot of them flagged for injuries still. And then, Trell Harris has been out for a while. He returned to practice, but he's not going to return for the game. They have their coach, man. He's awesome with injuries. Just flat out tells you what's going on. Love it. He told us that Jaden Gibson pulled his hamstring in practice. Like, who would normally we would have no idea, but I mean, thank you at least for giving us the information. On defense, this is the real problem. Jason Hammond at defensive tackle, James Jackson at linebacker, Corey Thomas at corner, Antonio Clary at safety. All those players have been out or banged up recently. I think Clary might return, but those other three, I don't think we're going to get back. So it's a pretty weak defense, and they've shown flashes. It's largely just dependent on their health, but they're 105th. I don't think they're going to get back enough reinforcements to stop Rashard Smith or Kevin Jennings. These receivers, the offensive line is awesome. More on them in a second. But the other thing with Virginia is they have not been able to land on a QB. Colin Drea has been benched a couple times in game, and it makes sense. He's not having the best season, 13 turnover-worthy plays, only 10 big-time throws. He's not running the ball a ton. I don't know if we've seen enough Tony Muskett to just know that he's better, but regardless, they are playing a little bit of quarterback roulette. Their O-line has been a problem this year. They're 116th in pass blocking, 60th in run blocking. That's largely just players going in and out of the lineup again. But SMU is 12th on defense. They don't have a ton of injuries. Really, it's kind of just the same guys from earlier this year. Jake Bailey, Romello Brinson, RJ Maryland. It's a lot of pass catchers, but fortunately, they were so deep at those positions. They've been able to withstand them. Savion Byrd, one of their tackles, went down a couple times in their last game, but he did return. He's banged up, so I don't know. Maybe you see like a quick leash on him or something, but he looks like he dodged injury there. Jalen Davis-Robinson at corner, Elijah Roberts on the edge. Davis-Robinson played through an injury. He was limited. Roberts was a surprise miss in their last game. I think both of those guys play. So better health on SMU, just way better talent. If you wanted to wait and just ensure that some of these Virginia players are out, you could do that before the game. They have amazing beat reporters in Virginia, so you will know. But I think you could play this if you wanted to right now. I think alt lines are somewhat in play for this game. If SMU is fully on their game, they could win this by 21. We've seen that multiple times this year where either they short circuit in the red zone, have to kick a field goal or something, or they can just absolutely demolish a team.
No argument with that, and you get 9.5. What about 57?
I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
I'm a little worried with Virginia's offense of late, but
yeah,
SMU is going to do a lot of that work.
Yes, they are. I think Virginia can keep a little pace. All right, keep that one in mind. But yeah, I hope no upset.
That's true. You mentioned a good point. Virginia's 26th in pace. SMU's 24th. That's really good.
Is healthy pace. SMU's going to do the heavy lifting. I know Virginia's Virginia, and they've got some issues, but I think they're good for about over 20 points in this game.
Yeah, they scored 14 on Notre Dame, 24 against Pitt, only 14 against North Carolina is their biggest split, but they've been scoring at a healthy clip most of the year.
Yeah, I feel okay about that. All right, Iowa State and Utah. Oof, 7.5 points. I have to ask you this every single time because I genuinely don't know. Iowa State, they need help, but they're still alive? Question mark.
Correct. They are still alive. They need help. But so many of these teams play each other in the Big 12 that I just closed their odds. I wonder what they are to make the playoff.
Oh, they're big. I think they're like 25-1, something
Holy
like
smokes,
that.
That's more than I thought.
I could be wrong. I looked at that just the other day, and it was obviously very high.
I see plus 700.
Okay, so don't listen to me. I'm probably wrong.
Well, I mean, these are. You probably could find a 25-1 out there.
Let me see. Hold on. I have this right here.
These future markets vary wildly book to book. If you're not shopping futures, you absolutely have to.
Yeah.
You can find some wild discrepancies in future markets.
They have South Carolina to make the playoff on this. Is that even possible?
They're not on my list.
Plane crash? Like that just seems not possible.
Okay. What about quick side note? What if we have a Florida State situation with the team?
I was just saying, if you tell me that you think Florida State's making the playoffs, we're going to have you.
No. I mean last year when they lost Travis.
So I heard
clearly we're left out because Travis got hurt.
Not to take a shot at anybody else in the media or whatever, but I wish you saw the show for one reason and one reason only. Joey Galloway.
He's on the show.
Yeah, he was suggesting that Indiana bench Curtis Rourke against Ohio State to avoid a Jordan Travis situation, which shouldn't be uttered on TV or anywhere, really. Not on board with that. But yeah, I mean,
I don't even have anything to say.
no, that's.
I really think we should do our own reaction show.
We're gonna do the check. Let us know in the comments. Do you need us on live talking through this? I'd be happy to do it. If people will watch, we will be glad to do it.
I can't have like the fact that Joey Galloway got paid to say that on television.
Yeah, he's like,
I'm no genius by any means, but I'm not gonna say that.
No, and I've got obvious multiple problems, but even I wouldn't say that. I just don't understand. And yeah, I mean that would be. I think it would have, I'll say this, and then we could get back to reality. I think it would have to be the right, or depending on how you want to phrase it, the right or wrong team. Like if a big blue blood has that happen, it won't matter. But if it's a team that maybe they didn't really want in there anyway, I could see it being another talking point of why they leave somebody out. Yeah.
Yeah, especially if it's like a Big 12, BYU or something that loses
like
their conference
SMU,
title.
BYU. Yeah. I mean, those teams are probably drawn to the conference anyway, but like, yeah. Anyway, South Carolina is not making the playoff, but that's neither here nor there. They got Tulane on this list. Okay.
I mean, that is one thing that's interesting. What if Boise doesn't win their conference?
Yeah.
They played a crazy game, not crazy, but like a close game against UNLV.
And
it would not be the biggest.
Half competitive last week.
Yeah, I mean, it would not be the biggest upset for Boise to lose in the conference title.
Definitely not.
Which would be kind of cool.
Maybe Army beats Notre Dame.
No. Army is going to play Tulane for the AAC.
Yeah, and they'll be
probably as the next best
17-point underdogs. It's not going to happen.
You're not wrong.
It's not going to happen. All right, talk to me about Iowa State and Utah. Utah has just had a crazy year. They were not able to knock off BYU. I don't even remember what they did last week, to be honest.
They lost.
Okay, there you go. They lost. I don't even know who they played.
They played Colorado. They got murdered.
Oh, yeah. I did watch that game. I watched that game. They were destroyed swiftly. What's going on? Is it Wilson's job? What do we even care?
I don't think we care a lot. Wilson's been awful, but they just don't have any options at QB right now. Like if they go to Batari at some point, we saw Batari
hurt, right?
Yeah, Rose.
Yeah.
We saw Batari start a game last year, and he's a walk-on, and it shows. But, I mean, Wilson, I don't know that the situation's been great for him this year. He's a freshman 4-star, thrown to the fire, 15 turnover-worthy plays, 6 big-time throws. Injuries just everywhere now. Money Parks, their wide receiver 2. Brant Keithy, a tight end out for the year. Micah Pittman left the team. Michael Mokofisi at right guard missed their last game. They still have some defensive injuries. They've gotten players back, but just as that happens, a few more exit. Sion Fotu played a snap, which was interesting. Wasn't expecting that. But then Levani Damuni, Keenan Johnson have been out forever. They just lost Van Fillinger at edge. I don't know if he's going to play. So this team is just battered, but Iowa State has also been battered on defense too. Caleb Bacon and Kyle Berzina are both out at linebacker. They did have some good news, like McLaughlin came back. But J.R. Singleton immediately goes out at defensive tackle. So another injury for them on defense. I still think you have the more talented team in Iowa State who could take care of business in this game. I don't love the number having the hook there. I'm looking mostly at 7.5 at this point. It's moved through 7. Maybe you could still find that if you really shop it. But defenses are comparable, I think, right now because of the injuries. But Iowa State just has the far better offense with Becht, Higgins, Noel. Both O-lines are a concern right now. But I think that's a pretty strong advantage for this team, especially with some of the injuries Utah has in the back end. I will say, Iowa State is a very imbalanced defense. So overall metrics, just power ratings on defense look pretty similar between these two teams. Utah is fairly consistent across the board, like consistently bad. Iowa State is 125th in run defense and 11th in coverage. And I think that's largely the product of all the injuries they've had in the front 7 at defensive tackle and linebacker. Maybe getting some of those players back, like McLaughlin, will help them. I don't know if it's going to be enough. But at the same time, like you could probably just throw an extra body into the box, even if you suck against Utah, because there's absolutely no threat to throw right now. They have like one legitimate pass catcher in Dorian Singer. Utah is an utter mess. Maybe you could look at an under. Pace is horrible. That's something that to also consider. Or just like under Utah team totals. Very interested in that.
Let's see if we can find that. That's a little interesting to me.
I'll pull up the implied team total. It should be
we
bad.
got like under 14.5 at
that's
minus
awesome.
105.
14.5 is what it is?
At minus 105, yeah.
That's not bad.
No. You could go.
You might be able to find something better that's juice too.
I mean, you could go 17.5 at minus 165.
Yeah, that's not bad either. I think that's just kind of like a juice preference.
Yeah.
I would have to like do the implied math.
Under 10.5 even at plus 160.
My brain's not smart enough on the implied numbers, but yeah, I think all those are fine. If you want to play it 3 ways, like do a little,
little ladder,
the team total version of the ladder.
I respect that. We're breaking new ground here. All right, we're gonna do one more game, and we'll get to best bets. And if we didn't get to something, again, hop on in Discord, use those links, get it for free, and we'll see you in there. You can also tweet us, Matt_Gajeski at JazzRazBets. Listen, Thanksgiving, sick week, all sorts of stuff is going to be going on. So we'd love to have you. Baylor, Houston. Clearly, Houston is looking at basketball at this point. But Baylor, what's Baylor's status? Did they have anything to play for?
They're alive. They need there's like these chaos situations. Really just the Big 12. There's not very many of these. But there are chaos situations in the Big 12 where, I mean, a lot of these teams that are in contention would have to lose their next 2 games. But technically, they're not dead. Houston, certainly dead. But Baylor's really impressed me of late. Not on defense, but they've been able to outscore teams. And they've gotten a lot out of Sawyer Robertson, which I was definitely not expecting. But I don't know. The thing I had flagged in this game was the over.
Same
because
thing.
Baylor is going to score, really, I think, at will. Both of these defenses are horrendous. And Houston's actually moved the ball pretty well. They just can't get it in the end zone for some reason. They only scored 3 points against Arizona. That was not indicative of what happened to this team. This team was in the red zone like 5 different times and came away with 3 points. Whether it was turnovers or they had a turnover on down at the 1. Houston, I think there are ways Houston beats Arizona if you run that game back just based on yards per play and stuff. But man, that is not reflective of the box score for Houston. With Zion Chris under center and the way he can run the ball, I think that mitigates a lot of like the problems Donovan Smith was having, just like taking sacks and stuff. I think Houston's going to do their part in scoring this game. And then I have no question that Baylor's going to score. So I do like an over in this.
I'm with you. This is one of my favorite bets, actually. I was on this. Chris, obviously capable runner. He almost had 200 yards passing in the last game. He's been okay. He can throw the ball a little bit. Baylor had 35 at halftime. I know West Virginia is just a double level bad, but Baylor's offense has been absolutely fantastic. And I didn't even intentionally do this, but I look back on my year. I've been hitting Baylor overs for quite some time. It was just opponents that I was interested in. I had the over in the Oklahoma State game. There's been a lot of those. Baylor's getting in crazy games left and right.
I haven't taken it yet, but I'm putting it in right now.
I mean,
so yeah,
this is not how things work in life, but it is kind of interesting. Baylor's point totals have been, going back like 2 months into the 60s in basically every game. 69, 62, 74, 94, 70, 66, 71, 84. I don't think Houston drags them down this much. I don't understand this line.
I agree with you. And I think a lot of it is just stemming from the Houston side. They play slow, which is, that's not probably going to change. They need to be efficient. But this team has been faster of late. Like they're 29.2 seconds per play on the year. They've jumped to 27.1. So rather than being like 124, 27.1 ranks 90th. So it's more reasonable. Their offense has definitely been more efficient than their outcomes.
Yes.
Again, just like all of those red zone trips against Arizona, I don't know what the hell happened, but this offense is a little better than people think. I won't say it's like a much better, but it definitely is. And their O-line's not horrible. This team is 32nd in pass blocking. I don't know what they're doing run blocking. They're 105th there. But yeah, when they throw the ball, Chris should have some time. Their receivers are decent, definitely not good, but decent. I think it just comes down to Baylor's defense is horrible.
Yeah, Baylor's defense is in fact horrible, and Baylor wants to play that way, and they're going to play that way. Sign me up for that over. All right. Last thing. We're going to get to best bets momentarily. Do you have a take on the Citadel catching 49.5 against Clemson?
I think you should wear your Citadel shirt and we can sweat. One thing with Clemson is they'll let you score at the end of games when they're playing their walk-ons because, Dabo's kids got to get in.
All jokes aside, again, this is a Discord thing. There's probably going to be a situation in this game where it's like 42 or 49-0 around halftime. And if the books don't understand, you can actually create value. Like Clemson's not going to win by 80 points. They just won't do that. Georgia's not going to do that against UMass either. If you hit the live number, once they call it off, you can be successful. I'm just telling you.
I'm not laughing. I'm thinking back. What was it, week 2 against Tennessee, where you had Kent State plus 90?
Yeah, and
was that plus 90?
I had 86.5. I want to say, because it was 70-0 at half.
A football game,
and it's just like they're not gonna. And I mean, truth be told, but yeah, they will call it off. I had Arkansas Pine Bluff plus 81.5 against Arkansas to open the year, and then they shortened the game, and I didn't even get paid. None of this is relevant.
That is the only risk, really.
Yeah, but like late in the season, they're not doing that. All right. Hit me with some best bets. What do we got?
All right, I got 2 quick rapid fire ones that we didn't talk about in depth because they're not very good games. I want to just highlight quickly Arkansas versus Louisiana Tech. I did this earlier this year against UAB, so I'm hoping to just get my money back against an awful Louisiana Tech team with Arkansas. If you find anything around 21, I'm even willing to lay a couple extra points. I think that one's fine. And then Colorado State against Fresno State. I'm taking points with Colorado State if it's anything above 3. I'm just not really sure. Sorry?
3.5 is right on the screen. Yep.
That's what I took. And injuries don't really line up. Like I saw this and I'm like, all right, who's out for Colorado State? Not named Torrey Horton because he's been out for a while. And it wasn't anyone of significance. I'm just very confused why this line is where it is. Anyway, from the games we talked about, I like Iowa. I'll leave your favorite one for you to take, but I think Iowa, even on the road, is completely fine. And then I'm interested in SMU. I'm not sure how I'm going to play this yet. It might just be straight up, or it might be some alternate lines against Virginia in a situation where they should absolutely dominate them.
With you. I'm going to go to the over in that Baylor game. I like that quite a bit. I just think that Houston will do their part a little more than people think in that situation. I'm actually going to go straight totals. I'm going under 42.5 in the Nebraska-Wisconsin game. I really think that crawls. I don't think either team is going to have super big play equity. Pace will be whatever. Give me a couple greasy, and then again, keep an eye out for those live. Once you get over 70 points in a football game, there's some actionable stuff to happen. There's a couple of those games this week. The Citadel, baby. Plus 75, plus 80. We can get it done. But if you have any questions on any of that stuff, I'll see you guys in Discord. One last shout out. You can get it for free right here. That link is in the description of this video. After you finished up, if you're right here listening, just click the link and see what's up. Maybe we'll see you guys in there. But for me and Matt, and us at Betting You, maybe a live reaction on the cusp with the playoffs rapidly approaching. But until then, guys, good luck and joy. We'll talk to you soon.